Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. How you doing? This week I'm going to share with you some of my spirit stories, my experiences with the spirit world, because I keep asking people when we're interviewing them about things that have blown their minds, and then remembering that I haven't told you guys some of these stories. So some you might have heard before, some will be new to you. This might end up being a two-parter because if there's one thing I'm not, it's concise, and we know that. But I hope that you will enjoy this. Now, before I delve into me blathering, I wanted to just say thank you to those of you who have submitted your own spirit stories to the podcast. I have been, as you can imagine, inundated, and it's going to take me some time to go through and listen to them all. If you would like to be involved, we would still love to have your input. So what I am looking for is not necessarily people who are mediums who want to do the interview, because I've got loads of interviews lined up, loads and loads and loads. What I am looking for is people who perhaps aren't practicing mediums, who are interested in spirituality, who have a story about how they got involved in this or how spirit have presented to them something that happened. Because one of the things that I have always found really interesting is when I came out of the spiritual closet and started just owning the fact that I was a medium, I expected people to be very, well, you're fraudulent, you make a living out of ripping people off. And I do get that. Sadly, I do get that. You can't be without that. But more people, and I mean far more people, have some sort of story, some sort of time where they heard a voice and it saved their life, when their loved one was dying and they saw their spirit leave, when they were visited by an apparition and it told them something and it happened. People have these stories and they're just going around with them inside of them, not sharing them. So you have several options here. You can either record your story and send it to me as a voice note, or record it, upload it to YouTube as an unlisted video and send me the link to it and I will download it. Whatever works for you, and you can submit it as a story in its entirety for me to just play as you tell it on the podcast. Or you can send it to me and then I will arrange a Zoom interview with you. And I say interview, but I mean chat, where you can tell me the story and I will ask questions and we can record that and use that. And a couple of you have sent me emails with your story typed out, and that is absolutely fine too. If you don't want to speak on the podcast, I'll speak for you, but we would still love your stories. So please don't let nerves dissuade you from sharing some of the miraculous things that have happened, because I think we all need a little bit of a miracle and to hear other people's miracles every now and again, don't we? So on to me, my favourite subject. Where do I begin? I think I'm going to begin with when I first started in mediumship. So many of you know my origin story because I'm really bloody proud of it. I'm really proud of the fact that I wasn't aware that I had mediumistic ability, that I fell accidentally into mediumship, don't know how, and got carried along on this wave of wonder and magic. And when I first joined the first circle that I sat in, after my friend had done a spirit communication for me unexpectedly, without me seeking it. I mean, there was always a plan there, wasn't there? And she said, come to my circle. So I went along to her circle, and I don't know what I was expecting, but a group of middle-aged people sitting in somebody's living room that smelt faintly of dog was not it. I have to be honest and say I thought it was going to be more spiritually than that, but it was absolutely perfect. And there were some really sweet, very lovely, earnest people. And it was an advanced circle, so there wasn't an awful lot of explanation of what was going on and what was happening. And we sat in circles on dining chairs that weren't very comfortable in the dark, and we had to meditate. And I'll be honest with you and say I'm not sure if I felt anything. I can remember just sitting there the whole time going, am I feeling anything? Am I not? And this really sweet man that was there, I don't even remember his name now, he said to me, oh, my spirit guide is a chief of an Indian tribe. And he came up behind you and he put his hands on your shoulders and he pushed you into the circle. So you're definitely supposed to be here. But as a first experience for someone that had no idea what any of this shiz was, I'll be honest and say I was creeped out. My shoulders, I was like, who? There's someone behind me? Who? Can you see them? What is happening? And probably didn't receive that beautiful message in the way that it was intended. But isn't that the irony? And one day I was in that group. I'd been going for a few weeks, and what would happen is I'd sit there really quietly and I was quiet, believe it or not, for a time. And these people would be having these crazy ass experiences, and I'd still be like, is anything happening? Is this thing on? I'm not really sure. What's me? What's spirit? And I didn't really feel, because it was an advanced group, that I could ask those questions because I didn't want to get in everybody's way. And so I went to this group, and we would sit in the dark and be in this circle. And then one day, when we were sort of meditating, trying to communicate with spirit, the teacher, her voice changed, and I was there with my eyes shut. And I could hear her voice, her inflection had changed, the tone had changed, the way she was speaking had changed. But I didn't know what trance mediumship was then. So I just thought, well, that's weird. Is she putting on a voice? That's a bit strange, in that kind of analytical way that my brain, sadly, always works. And being the kind of classy girl that I am, I swallowed and choked on my own dribble. And then, of course, you're trying not to cough because you don't want to disturb everybody else's meditation, but your eyes are streaming and you have to move. And so I leant forward, opened my eyes and just leant forward in the dark to grab my glass of water and have a bit of a drink. And I had my drink and I was looking around and the coughing stopped. And I looked over at the teacher, and the teacher was a white middle-aged woman. She had changed into a tiny, elderly black lady, and all tiny, shriveled up, covered in wrinkles, scrawny, beautiful, elderly black lady. And just like in a cartoon, I closed my eyes, rubbed them, and opened them again. And that lady was still there. That spirit apparition was still there. And I sat there with my mouth hanging open and watched that spirit talk to us through the teacher in trance. And then I saw the spirit fade back and the teacher return. And I still said nothing. I still waited till I got in the car with my friend and then just went, what the actual fuck did I just see? Because that's how spiritual I am. But honestly, I still can't believe that really happened. And that is the only time. Well, no, it's not actually, because I've got another story about that I might share with you. But that is one of the only times that I have physically seen spirit, physically seen transfiguration take place en masse, on the whole. When we do transfiguration on my retreats and things like that, little bits and people change. Their features change, but it's very gentle. But that was the first time I ever saw it full body, everything. The physical person was bigger than the spirit, but the spirit, you couldn't see the physical person at all. You could only see the spirit. And it was mind-blowing to me, just completely mind-blowing. So that was kind of cool, very cool. And that was amazing. And then on our explorations in this group, now this teacher was an amazing teacher for me. I'm so grateful to everything she taught me, and I'm just not naming her because I'm not sure how in the public arena she would like to be. But she was an incredible teacher to me, but she believed in dark forces. So she believed that there were things out there that could get us, things, demons, entities, things like that. And because I learnt under her, through her guidance, in that way that I think we all do, which is perfectly natural, I believed in that too, because she was my teacher. So for a time, everything that she said became law. And that's kind of how it has to be. I think we receive things from people. And then I think from a big part, mediumship development is a lot about undoing. It's the great undoing. It's taking that idea of what you thought and unwinding it and changing it and helping you to see things from a different perspective. I always think that's the way, for us, certainly. Hopefully, with enough of us spiritually awakening now, for the next generations of children, they won't have been squashed and they won't have had no, of course, don't be silly, you're not seeing that, and the silencing coming in. And they will have different challenges to face within that. So that's beside the point. Anyway. So where we lived was a little village, and my friend lived opposite an empty pub, and that empty pub was going to be turned into a drug rehab centre. No problem with that at all, except for the people that were running the business of opening these rehab centres were in a real business mindset. So they've got several in the area. They're not really looking after people. They're spending loads of money on the upbuilding and the upgrade with grants from the government, but they're not actually really helping people. And my friend just couldn't let it go. It was so interesting. She could not let this development go. And she kept waking up at night with a spirit really giving a big presence in her room, a big feeling in her bedroom. And she would say, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. I can just feel you here. You're making it hard for me to breathe. You're going to have to find a way to tell me who you are if you want me to work with you, because I can't keep doing this, because it had been going on for weeks at this point. Anyway, one day, a few days later, the local vicar comes to her house and hands her loads of documents about a guy that used to live in the village. And it's only the bloody spirit that's been visiting her. So somehow the spirit world got the vicar to deliver the information about this guy. And then it turns out that he owned the land that they were going to be building part of this centre on, and he had bequeathed it to the people of the village. And he was incensed that it was going to be taken and used by millionaires for a business that isn't actually helping people. And with him and the power of him and her hard bloody work, they got it overturned. She riled up all the villagers and everybody fought it. But it was absolutely fascinating. And I went to her house, and bearing in mind, this is very early in my development. So these are things I'm telling you right now that happened within the first 3 months of me attending Circle. This is not a long into development stage. This is how it began for me. This is my origin story. So, she's there and she's telling me the story about the vicar turning up with all this documentation for her. and all of the lights in her house are turning on and off at different times. And I was simultaneously amazed and absolutely bricking it. And yeah, that was just an absolutely fascinating way that spirit were working through her because she's so available to them. I hope these stories are interesting. I think they are. I love them. So that happened. That was pretty cool. And then my teacher, who believed that bad things could happen, also got caught up in this development and the energy of the development. And they believed in, and I did too, at that time, hexes, and that people could cast spells on areas that would cause problems. And in the road along this village where we believed there had been a curse cast by witches in Eastry who were, not witches like you see in a film, but hexing it because of damage done to them by men and other women and villagers. We, along this road, there was every single house along this road, the men in the houses had died, had got crippling illnesses, disabilities that came out of nowhere, and were leaving their wives, leaving the areas. And it was a whole line of like 20 houses where something had happened on that line. And somehow, and it's weird with memory, isn't it? Because I don't really remember how it bloody happened. But I ended up in a wigwam dug into the ground, so beneath ground level, in somebody's garden, but it was like a big garden, a lot of land, with a bunch of strangers, my teacher and my friend, and they were burning so much sage. It was like a hot box from my teenage years. I could barely breathe. My eyes were streaming. We were in pitch blackness and we were going in as the light. I mean, it makes me feel embarrassed now when I know what I know and how spirit work. But at the time, we were very earnestly going in as the light workers, the warriors of light, to break the hex and fight it and undo the damage. And I will tell you this, I don't believe in hexes. I don't believe anyone can cause any damage to you that you don't allow. I absolutely do not believe that at all. I mean, let's look at it in honesty. Look at the God Squad who hate me. Now, it's funny, isn't it? Because I would call myself God Squad, but the religious God Squad who hate me, if you could wish ill will upon somebody and it work, then I would have been hit by a car by now, wouldn't I, to stop me sharing the word of spirit the way that I do. So nobody can do anything to you that you do not allow. Absolutely not. If someone says to you, I've hexed you, and you go, oh, good luck with that, it won't have any impact. If they say, I've hexed you, and you go, oh my God, what have you done to me? Oh, I do feel funny. Oh no, what have you done? Oh no, this has happened because of the hex. You perpetuate under law of attraction. That's energy. But at the time, that's what I believed. Now, regardless of whether that's right or wrong or what you believe or where you're at with it, I will tell you this. We were all holding hands in a circle in that wigwam. And then we let go. And then we were told to take each other's hands again. And the physical space had changed. And we could no longer reach each other. And there were spirit guides sat between us all. There were extra people in there. And that happened. And yeah, I might have been tripping out on the huge amount of sage I was inhaling, and it was just sage. But honestly to God, we held hands and it was a comfortable handhold. And then we let go, we asked spirit guides to step in, and then you could feel extra people sitting between us. There was suddenly more people in the space. You know when you can feel people there, even if you can't see them with your eyes. And then we went to reach out hands again, and we couldn't. We were stretching and just able to touch fingertips with each other. And that actually happened. Yeah, that was pretty cool. This is fun. So those are like the big things that happened. And what's really ironic to me is that my friend then decided, for whatever reason, she couldn't go to Circle anymore. And I wasn't brave enough to continue going without her. I needed her to be my crutch. She was such a good friend to me. I don't know how she was so patient. So I then quit and just got on with life for a year or so. And what's really interesting about that is those really amazing, profound experiences, seeing that little black lady, being in that yurt and the space changing, the physical space changing like that, I forgot about. I just put it in a box and completely forgot about it. And when I went back, when that same teacher started doing a beginners group, and I went back, I was in it for 6 months and I still couldn't remember that stuff had happened because I just don't think I was ready for it. And then all of a sudden one day, I just remember looking at her and all of a sudden the box was open again and I could remember everything. And I was like, oh my God, and this happened and this happened. And she was just laughing, but I was just couldn't cope with it. I didn't understand enough about it. And so it was such a baptism of fire into spirit and my introduction to spirit and the power of spirit. Another funny thing that happened to me once, which was quite early in my development, was I used to have a cooking business and I had a friend, Lorraine, who used to come and help me peel veg and get stuff done. And we used to have a playlist and we would just sing the whole time we were peeling veg because, peeling 100 kilos of potatoes by hand is quite a boring job. So we would sing along while we were doing it and make it more interesting. And one day we were peeling away and all of a sudden, in that way that you're just aware with spirit, so I didn't physically see this one, but Bohemian Rhapsody came on the playlist and we were singing, and this man in a suit like an opera singer came through my back door. Guy in his 50s, big tummy, and he sang with this amazing voice that I could hear in my head. And he sang the whole of Bohemian Rhapsody. And I was so shocked I couldn't react. So I just sang along with him. And my friend was completely unaware. So she was singing. And then he went, "Thank you for that, ladies," and walked back out the back door. And I've never seen him since. And I turned to my friend and went, did you feel that? Did you see that? And she said, "No, what were you talking about?" And I told her and she went, "Oh my God, you're kidding me." And I said, honestly, I feel like that happened. And then as soon as those sort of things happened, of course, your brain just goes, "You made that up, you absolute lunatic." And so I went to Circle the following week. And it was so funny because I went in and I said, "Hey guys, I just need to ask if something happened." And they went, "It did." And I said, "Yeah, but can I just tell you the story?" And they went, "It did happen." And I went, "Yeah, but can I just tell you the story because it will make me feel better?" And they said, "Go on then." And so I told them and they went, "Yeah, that really was spirit." And it was just so funny. Everyone was laughing at me, questioning it. But that was kind of magical too. One of the funniest stories, I think, is still quite early on in my development when my sister had come round. My husband was away and the kids were up in bed. And I've got a big old house and there's lots of noises in it and there's been lots of spirit activity in it because it is the kind of house that people come back to visit. So people who lived in this house who are still alive come and ring the doorbell and ask to have a look around it. So you can only imagine what it's like with all of the people that have lived in this house. This house was the Baptist preacher's house, and we found some books online that he wrote that we intend to buy actually, so that we've got some of his work here. But he pops in, his wife pops in. There's all sorts of things like like that. And when I believed in spirits getting trapped, there was a young boy that was upstairs in our bedroom, which is above the living room, and you could hear his footsteps. You could hear him walking, and you could hear that. Wasn't our imagination. You could hear someone walking back and forth across there. And I had my friend over to help me. I was like, I think I've got a spirit that needs clearing. Can you come and help me and have a look? And she came over, and earlier that week with my cooking business, I had been baking cakes, and I had done two exactly the same cakes, but one of the cakes had a really liquidy mix when it was made, and I cooked it and it turned out perfect, turned out the same as the one that wasn't liquidy. But I just had that thought by myself, oh, that's a weird cake, that's a weird mix, put it in, it worked fine, didn't think about it again, if I'm honest. And my friend just said to me, oh, there's a wife here, the wife of the man of the house, he's a religious man. And I said, yeah, that's the Baptist preacher, that'll be his wife. And she went, she loves your house, she loves you being here, she loves the children, she loves seeing you all in her home. And I said, well, that's good, isn't it? Because it'd be a problem if she didn't. And she said, oh, she's telling me about your cakes. You had 2 cakes this week, but one was different. She said you overbeat the mix. I could have fallen off my chair. How's that for evidence? Not something I'd ever mentioned to anybody, but just mind-blowingly accurate and hilarious. So I get cooking advice from the spirits in this house. And anyway, going back to my sister, sorry. My sister was here, my husband was away, and we were always a little creeped out, and we love to watch horror movies, so we wind each other up anyway. And her little dog, her little chihuahua, was barking into the air. And I said, oh, I don't like it. He's looking at something over there. And she said, yeah, I can see that. And he was going, bark, 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 bark. And I turned and I said, whoever you are, please go away because you're scaring us. And then the dog instantly stopped barking. And then my sister said, that's worse. It's worse. Now he's stopped. And you've said that. And we sat there for ages, really creeped out. And when I went to Circle the following week, the teacher said, why did you tell your granny to go away this week? And I went, oh, Granny. And do you know what's really interesting? In all of the students that have read for me, in all of the time, my granny has never come through. My nana has, but she was still alive at that moment, so I knew which granny it was, but she has never come through since. And I don't honestly believe that that is because she is punishing me for telling her to go away. I think it's just that she's got an energy that perhaps people aren't as open to in their mediumship, but it is fascinating, isn't it? That was my chance to be with her. So yeah, that happened. Oh, and the young lad in my room. You see how my brain works now, guys. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I'm omnipresent mentally. So there was this lad, we could hear him walking back and forth, and that room had a really weird vibe. It had like a kind of miserable energy going on in it. And I called in the angels. My friend said, I'm not allowed to help you clear this. This is one you need to clear for your development yourself. So I went up there and lit a candle and lit some incense and called in the angels. And now it's funny because what I felt in that moment was the most incredible, beautiful, mind-blowing love from spirit. And at the time, I thought it was for him being reunited with his family on the other side. But of course, I now know that that was an illusion put in by my restrictions and my beliefs. And of course, everybody is instantly fine and instantly transfers to the other side. So I guess I've never really talked about this or thought about it since. That love was for me. But it was, I had tears running down my face. It was like just for a moment, just for a second, touching the infinite love of spirit. It was beautiful. I don't think I have the vocabulary for it. So that was a real amazing experience, even if I misinterpreted it. And I know that Spirit forgive me for that, because they knew that eventually they'd be able to get the message through to me that I'd got that so wrong. I knew it. I've got too many blooming stories. So this is going to be, and is going to be another part, but I just want to tell you a really lovely story about my friend and I being on the shamanic course with the wonderful Lynn Gosney, who I interviewed recently. And we were sitting in the garden. It was a beautiful sunny day. And I was annoying my friend by drinking my Pepsi Max, which she always winces at because it's so bad for you. And she said, it's my mum's birthday today, and her mum is in spirit. And I said, oh, happy birthday, Nina's mum. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And we just sat there with the sun and smiled. And then I just really cheekily, I don't even know why I did it, said, if you could give us a sign that you're around, that would be really wonderful. And within 10 seconds, honestly, I can't even tell you how quickly it was, a family of ducklings came out from under the hedge and sat on our laps. It was just crazy. And there was no mummy duck. And Nina started crying because her mum's favourite animal was, you've guessed it, ducks. And we had those little ducklings. And then, as you will have known if you've listened to the interview with Lynn Gosney, she's a tough cookie. We were worried because she's got loads of birds of prey where she is. First of all, lots of people were touching the ducklings. Luckily, I didn't. More from fear of hurting them and not really knowing what the hell to do with ducklings, having never come into contact with any. I mean, they crawled across my lap, but I didn't touch them. But some people were picking them up and stroking them. And Lynn came down the garden like she does, and she just went, why are you touching them? Their mother will not accept them now. You have ruined those ducks' lives. And everyone was like, oh, whoops. And then overhead are these birds of prey circling. And we go into the lodge to do the afternoon's teaching, but the ducklings are still in the garden, walking around the garden, going, and none of us can concentrate. And Lynn is saying to us, if they get eaten, they get eaten. That is the natural order of things. We should not interfere with the cycle. And all of us are like, oh my God, no, can't eat the ducklings, no, being really human about it, which is ridiculous, I know, but that was where we were at. And eventually, because nobody in the group was paying attention, we were all twitching too much and too worried, Lynn agrees that we can put the ducklings into a box, and Nina has a pond in her back garden. So Nina took those ducklings home and reared them and waited till they were adults and set them free on a local pond. But I just thought it was so mind-blowingly, instantaneously. And there's that feeling, isn't it? When you guys have had experiences like this, you'll know what I mean. You could feel the spirit world at work. There was something extra in that mix. It was incredible. So there we go. There's part one of my spirit stories, and I'm already thinking of more and more ones that I want to add. So I'll keep going until you tell me to stop. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I will catch up with you again soon.